Delco After Dark live music series. Live on. Hey, there we are, driving by the Wawa corporate offices over at Red Roof. Hey, and there's some more Wawa. Hey, going through, heading to town to... Oh, Jesus. Hey, Frank's on the show as we head by the Sterling Pig, one of the places. And hey, that's where the coffee club used to be. Ah, the memories. You know what? Hey, there's me. Hey, I'm on the show too. This is like the State Street montage. This is like the heart of Delaware County. At least we didn't get hit by the trolley or nothing because, there's the trolley. Delco After Dark opening montage. Hey, stop by the Media Theater because, hey, and then you got to go by John's. O'Connell's over in Springfield. But we just sort of parked at the 2312 because we did, hey, Pinocchio's. Got to stop by Wawa and eat off the trash can because that's what you do. Delco After Dark. Come on, join us for a little bit. Singer-songwriter series. Right here on Twitch and Facebook. Right now.
Is it Doc?
Yeah, he's
Are
the
you in Delco?
grumpiest man I know,
So,
but he also works
They should
at
meet my old co-host.
Tailor-made
He-
for that
he works at
exact
Elton.
circumstance
Oh.
right here for
He's
you
a
and
cute,
yours.
so he takes
from
care of the
us.
special needs guys at
It's
Elwyn,
Delco
and he's
After
just
Dark.
like, I'll
Go
he
figure.
went to Elwyn.
That
or
show,
Elwyn.
that
He went
event,
to
that Friday night
Westchester and got his
tradition that
master's
you do,
for
not really
psychology.
sure why,
Psycho-
but you keep doing it, watching
psychology and
beyond
stuff.
all reason.
Yeah, I know.
2 degrees,
To
but,
these guys.
you know, but he's
Whomever,
he's just
yeah,
so
he will
angry.
drag
when he-
on, kicking, sometimes screaming. I mean, the screaming usually ends long before showtime, but you never know what's going to happen. Seriously, you never do, which gives it that surprise, kind of feel to it, like, ooh, what's going to happen? Hey. So let's see what surprises happen tonight on Delco After Dark.
I work.
There we go. There we go. Because I muted us on the opening thing. So.
That's
Whatever. It's like no, someday I'll take it seriously. That's the thing. Like somebody
Don't take it seriously.
I mean, as serious as I get. Well, honestly, I don't know about. We'll introduce Matt in a second, but I don't know about you. But like every time I start it up, it's like I have to rebuild stuff all the time. Like tonight, like I had to rebuild like just this scene because I was working on something else and it like grabbed everything else.
Brother, if you only knew how many
Dude,
podcasts I
dude.
threw away because there
Dude,
were
it's
audio issues. It's so horrible.
Dude, it's if like if it was like legitimate pay for the like I would get paid for this gig, maybe I would take it a little more seriously. And I do because at least I sit down and like an hour and a half beforehand to make sure everything works.
You know what really does that for you?
What's that?
Mark McKenna.
Yeah.
Having him on my podcast was huge. Huge.
So yeah, you felt you had to like kind of like
I had to step up.
yeah.
I had to step up because, and I got Frank Percy with me on Tales of the Hunted.
Yeah. By the way, this is Matt. How do you pronounce your last name? By the way,
Bucarel.
Bucarel.
Yeah,
Okay.
like the mountain in Romania.
I did not know that there was a mountain in Romania.
There's also
apparently I can't say Romania.
There's also a candy company named Bucarel, which is crazy. But yeah, no, it's like apparently Bucarel's like Smith over there. That's what I've heard.
Well, I know that Park, my last name's Park, is like the Smith of Korea. Like everyone in Korea is Park.
Yeah, I had a linguist pop in my old job, and he was really grilling me on like, okay, like, well, where does it come from? I was like, I don't know. I do have like a family Bible that came from over there, and apparently a lot of the Bucarels over there were named Carcon, which is apparently Chris. So, and it's just a thing with the Bucarels. There's a bunch of Chris's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my grandfather was Chris Bucarel.
So it's a-
my
it's a family
uncle's
thing.
Chris. Yeah, it's apparently just handed down. Thank God I'm named Matt.
Well, I mean, I know that my father, my brother, and my son all have the same name, and on my mother's side, my grandfather, my uncle, and myself, we all have the same name. So I mean, it's just a fact. But here's my question. So my father is Edwin, which is a very not common name. You don't run across Edwin. So my father's Edwin T. Park. His son is Edwin T. Park. So he's a junior. So he's effectively the second.
Yes.
So he's Edwin T. Park Jr. And then his son is Matthew, so that doesn't count. But my son, now that's my brother.
2 T's?
Yes.
Thank God. Okay.
But
There's those weirdos out there.
well,
Sorry.
that's like my name's Carl with a C,
Yes,
Carl with a K.
His brother's name is with a T. I just love grilling those guys because
With just one T?
Yeah, they
Like Matt, like
yeah.
one T.
Yeah, 1 T, but still HEW.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a weird spelling. They didn't choose it. I'll
Oh well, no. I mean, no. You can't. You have no.
There's still Matthew in my heart.
Now the question is, do you become? I've seen studies. Do you become your name over the course of your life, or does it have any driving force over your life, like the name that you're given?
Well, when I was a kid,
We got Mark in the chat. Yeah.
hey buddy,
Crazy motherfucker.
when I was a
Or
kid,
shouldn't you be lifting something heavy?
oh, he probably just got done arm day. It's okay. he's drinking the cockroach shakes. I love to make fun of him. He did that once. Yeah, he did.
What?
Fess up, Mark. You love no, it was crickets, not cockroaches. I'm sorry. He's probably furiously typing away.
Crickets?
Yeah, it was like a cricket protein shake. And he's like, it's great. He quickly stopped it. I love Mark. So to your question, I don't want to say that my name has affected my life, but it has, because when I was a kid, 80s into 90s, being on a soccer team, there were 6 other Matts. Matt, go forward. Everybody turns their head. So my dad went to my soccer coaches and he said, look, his entire life I've been calling him Matt Man. You want his attention, say Matt Man. So they started saying Matt Man when they wanted me. So when a previous podcast partner of mine said, hey, I want to do a podcast. And I said, what's a podcast? He said, well, it's like an internet radio show. I said, okay, well, I can do that because, did we go into the origins?
Do it.
So when I was in 8th grade, my parents moved out to Oxford.
Let's go back.
Yeah.
Oxford, PA.
Oxford, PA. They got
That is a bustling community.
it's a country town.
No,
Nothing to do.
There's like cows, and there might be some mushrooms wafting over from Kennett Square.
they
but
live in-
even Kennett Square is not close to it.
It's not. If you want to go to a Wawa, it's like 15 minutes away.
That is
wherever you live.
Inconceivable.
There's a lot of time in the car, and you're listening to a lot of radio. And in my house, we were always listening to WMMR, and MMR was always on. From John DeBella in the morning zoo,
Pierre Robert in the afternoon.
Bubba John. I almost crapped my pants when I met Bubba John. I loved meeting him. Pierre Robert.
I'm trying to remember who the woman was. Who was there was a, or was it YSP?
There was a woman.
Anita? Anita something?
Oh, I don't know. I remember there was
It was a long time ago.
There were so many DJs in there, but there was a couple. One was Christian. He did the kind of the late nights where Jackie Bam Bam's doing now, I think. And I emailed him in the early days of email before what I'm about to tell you. And I said, hey, man, I want to get into radio, how I do that. And he was like, well, I went to school, but, and then I found out, like, oh, he moved over here to move over there. And in radio, they move a lot. So I originally.
Oh, they move a lot, I'd imagine.
In college, I wanted to go for broadcasting because I had experience. And the experience is when we were living in Oxford, Fridays, my brother would pick me up and we'd drive right to the Concord Mall.
Yeah.
So leaving Oxford High School, going out to the mall, we're listening to MMR. There's this new guy on the radio at the 420 Music Marathon.
I mean, the Concord Mall wasn't close for you. That was
it was like an hour. That's why we had plenty of time to call into MMR and try to get a hold of Raz. So we would call in, and there were these people that lived down the street from us, the Stoners. So every time we would drive by, we would do a crazy stoner voice.
Hey,
We'd
man,
have fun.
Hey, man, you can do a lot of stuff with weed, man.
And we would call into the radio station. And one time we got through, and Raz asked us our name, but we thought he was asking us what we wanted to listen to. Because phone reception, if you remember back then, was horrible. We
You're
had
talking
drop
like-
calls all the time.
Like what, 05 or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Around well before that, it would be around 01. 01, 02 is when I was doing calling into MMR. So we were doing it for like a
Sounds
solid,
like a flip phone.
yeah, we were doing it a solid year, 2 years before we called into Raz and asked him to be in the studio. So in this first phone call is where we got the names for these characters, because when he asked what our names were, we said Truckin' from the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to hear it. He's like, all right, Chuck, well, you know, we really want to see you at this live show we're having at Temple. It was one of their spring concerts. And, you know, oh, awesome. It was an over 21. My brother's over 21. All right, at least you get to go. Grab a friend. And we never ended up going, but we had kept calling back in with funny stoner moments. Like one time we lost our feet. Another time we were trying to get to Mexico.
So you got through a lot.
Yeah, man, we got through a lot. Every Friday, my brother would pick me up, and we would call into MMR, and we'd call into Raz. We developed a relationship with him to the point where we got to the point where not only going in studio and doing special bits with him with guests like Jake Berge, Bill Berge's son.
Yeah. I mean, Bill Berge, I know.
We messed with him because Raz was like, dude, I want you to grill him thinking he's his dad, asking him why he's not in the Football Hall of Fame, and like kept feeding us these lines. So we're standing outside of the studio of MMR, and there's a phone there. And the one thing we didn't realize when we're in our little Chuck and Charlie world is that there's a window right here, and he is looking at me the whole time.
Oh, yeah. So you're on.
And he's a lacrosse player. He was a professional lacrosse player for Philly. So it was a little bit awkward walking back in there.
Those are usually rich kids, by the way. But anyway, go on.
I knew Mark would say crickets. I knew he would correct me. He
Wait,
can't.
I'm still stuck on that a little bit. Like,
I know, man. You got to talk to him about it. Explain
I mean, that must have been a massive protein shake.
Massive. He does everything to 1,000%. So MMR was really cool, especially when Tasty Cake came to Raz and said, look, we got these green filling Tasty Cakes coming out for the Eagles. We want Chuck and Charlie to go out looking for the green filling, but getting the wrong product. But they call you in thinking they're winning the big prize. And one was like hot dogs and like other weird stuff that shouldn't have a green filling.
No, if there's green in your hot dog, it's probably
It's the wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong hot dog.
Not the hot dog you want.
Don't go to 7.
It's like after the apocalypse. And,
Yeah. So that was the kind of origins for podcasting. So when my old podcast partner came to me and said, it's internet radio, I said, okay. And he said, you need a nickname. I said, got one. Batman.
Yeah, you were already primed.
So I have this experience, and then through that, I was doing video game streaming to where I would buy a game, indie game on Steam, and I would do my take on a review on it. And then I would get the game company saying, hey, man, thank you. You didn't do it like everybody else, and it's really nice content. Even recently with the Death and Taxes, which was an indie game that came out on a couple of years back.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it.
It's like one of those Papers, Please click games.
Oh, okay.
And it's almost like that, but Death and Taxes. It's the only two things certain in life, and it's kind of like you're a Grim Reaper checking people into the underworld and stuff. It's really cool.
That sounds familiar a little bit.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then the one of the creators reached out to us, and
that's great.
You know, we had her on, and it just the amazing people I've been able to have on because of having that radio background. Because one of the biggest compliments I've been getting from friends and other people alike is like, "Hey, man, that was a great podcast. You're a natural."
Well, it's the ability to talk to someone and also allow them to shine as well, which
Yeah.
not everyone can do.
No, they can't. But it's with Perjangers, and especially with Tales of the Hunted, all the experience.
Yeah, we got to get into that, by the way.
Yeah, it's all the experience with that has really led up to it. Because with Triforce, I met Mark. He was working at the Game and DVD Exchange. We did a live podcast there, and we kept coming back. And he said, "You know what?
Oh, that's where you guys hooked up.
Yeah.
Over here.
Yeah.
Oh, my son used to go there.
And
the
then-
time. Mark does an incredible impression of my son. Go ahead. Sorry.
When they were doing the Great Media Comic-Con the first time when COVID was about to hit, that's when we met Frank. So I've known Frank for 3 years now. And right after COVID hit, I met with Frank, and it was, hey, I want to get a Kickstarter together for Caribe the Hunted, his comic he wanted to put out. And that's what we had him on for, Caribe and all that, and the con. Eventually, we got into the con, as you've been.
Yeah.
And, I like where Tales of the Hunted is because I met Frank, because he's bringing me to the cons. We went out to the Blue Hen Con, and
You were at Ocean City, right?
Ocean City. I met Mark McKenna, that's where I got him on the podcast, and I'm still so thankful for him because he wants to come back on.
That's great.
I don't know. I don't know why, but he wants to come back. All these great content creators want to come back on my silly little podcast, and that's
You
the
sound just like me. Like sometimes, like I do my Delco After Dark, and I don't think anyone really notices it, and then I'll run into people. It doesn't happen a lot, but once in a while I'll run into people that recognize me, and it's just like, are you fucking with me?
It's the best
Right?
and worst thing ever, isn't it? Being recognized for something that you're doing because it's a passion and something.
Oh, I'm
that
a big
you love.
ham, so I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
You know, when I was down at the Ocean City Comic Con, I had so many older people come up to me and just say, "Hey, thank you for coming here. I really honestly appreciate you attending because we don't have anything to do around this time of year." It was in December. We really, as a community, we really appreciate this.
I was gonna say it's got to be a little on the dead side down there in December.
It was popping at that Comic Con.
Get the fuck out.
They're traditionally a one-day con, and I'm going to have James. I'm sorry if I got your name wrong. I'm horrible with names, but that's a perfect job for a host. And it's one of those things that through meeting all these guests and being at the cons, I'm realizing that I got to step my game up editing-wise, you know, and having Frank there as my coach, you know, because very early on, I was in a meeting with Mark and Frank, and they were talking about the comic, and like double Dutch, I kind of like hopped in there, and I don't know what I said, but Frank just looked at me and he goes, "Matt, are you telling me you're a writer?" And I just go like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So I wrote the backstory for Caribe the Hunted.
Oh.
12-page annual, which is the start of it. If the fans want more, I'm more than willing. But it's a.
And what does that mean? Is that a printed thing? Is it an internet thing?
It's a printed. It's going to be on his comic.
Oh.
It's going to be an annual, so it'll release 4 pages
And this
at a
is Frank,
time.
who I ran into at the.
Comic-Con.
He's got the leather jacket. He's got the leather without the.
That's Johnny Necro.
That's Johnny. I'm thinking.
That's
of.
my
Okay.
other brother. I love Johnny Necro.
crazy.
I've had him on a couple times.
He's crazy.
He's a rare gem.
I
love
was trying to drag him down. He's like, I think he's New York.
Yeah. That's why I like digital and I do Discord because it's free. Old man, he hooks up to these different things like, yeah, but it's free. I'm like, all right, we'll work with it. A lot like DaVinci Resolve. We were going live for a while, especially like during the COVID, but we didn't mention COVID because, like I said, it was a show. Not like what I'm doing with Frank. That's a conversation. That's a podcast.
Yeah.
You know, I was doing a weekly program to where it was friends gathering together talking about the latest and nerdy news because a lot of people want to get their opinion out there on what's going on, especially when you're looking at the kerfuffle that's happening with Marvel and DC. More seriously, DC, if we're being honest. We're putting a lot of hope into James Gunn. And that kind of researching into news, researching into the different topics, and having an honest conversation with a person it was more of an afterthought with Triforce. What evolved from Triforce would lead to be Tales of the Hunted. Because we started getting guests like Dave Wascavage, Suburban Sasquatch.
Oh my
director.
God! My story about Dave Wascavage is I met him in not even kindergarten. I met him in nursery school.
Wow.
We're talking
Way back.
Yeah,
It's nap time.
Dave and I graduated same class, 86 Pencrest, but we went to nursery school, and he will happily tell you the tale of when we were like literally 5 years old. They used to have these bricks. They were made of cardboard. Think of boxes. They were just boxes, but they were painted like bricks. And he would make this big fuck house in. And I didn't realize I was such a dick in nursery school, and I would be like, womp, and I would like just crush it in on him. And it was the worst, and he would scream and cry and stuff, and it was great. And then we got together much later and would hang out a lot. But yeah, he does Suburban Sasquatch, and what is it, the mushroom one?
Yeah, he's a great guy. I love
so
having
busy.
him
He's
on.
I always try to get together, but he's so fucking busy with all that shit.
And then we had Lisa Wilcox from Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and 5. That was a big.
She was at the Comic-Con, right?
No, that was. She was. There was Leah Cavelli. There was Johnny Necro's gonna be pissed at me. Beatrice Bopley.
Oh,
She was at the con. She was Freddy Krueger's mom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, And then Leah Cavelli was on Robot Chicken and Deadwood and all that. She was next to Johnny. I remember where everybody was. It was such a great event. I can't wait for this year.
Yeah,
I'm not involved, but I'm just a fan.
Yeah. You and I
I'm actually going to have Mark on the podcast tomorrow.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to have him on.
Well, he was just on.
We're going to be
he was on
hunting.
Delco Live, I think, last week.
Yeah, he's doing great. He was on Trout Stream. He's reaching out to podcast, which, it's one of those things. Podcasting there is no real local radio anymore. You used to be able to have local radio to tell you what's going on in your community, what's happening with the people around you, and it built the community. So now we lead to podcasting. And that's where Tales of the Hunted leads to, because I want to get your comic creatives, your film buffs. Injetta Anthony, this guy is an international indie film award winner. He went up to the Swedish International Film Festival and won for his amazing indie movie, Creatures of Necessity. And then he just won another film festival with, hey, Johnny. He just won another film festival with his second movie, Essential Beings, which is on Greek mythology. The first one, Creatures of Necessity, is so good because it's dark. It's like a kidnapping.
Feature length?
Yeah, feature-length movies. And they're on Amazon Prime.
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah. Creatures of Necessity is free if you're a Prime member. And I recommend watching that one highly because I watched both of them before I had him on. Because indie film guys, and I do my research into my guest, and I saw he's won all these awards. And I saw, look at this guy. He's got awards on that. I gotta watch this. And Creatures of Necessity is a kidnapping movie gone wrong. But it takes it to like a dark place to where the main character, I forget her name, but she's an award-winning actress in the indie scene too. You could tell she pours her heart into it. And that's the thing I love about indie. Indie guys, they're not in it about the money. It's the same thing with me. I'm not in it about the money.
Well, I mean,
I have a day job for money. If I was concerned about money, I would have paid attention in school a lot long ago.
That's a Lewis Black joke. Then I wouldn't have to do this bullshit for a living.
But you got to love it. That's where you got to be crazy.
Well, I mean, I used to, like a long time ago, we're talking in like the late 80s, I used to do comedy in Philadelphia, and I did it long enough to realize I didn't want to do it because it was tough as nails because you're performing, like in the beginning you perform for other comedians, so you have to be, so you have to, there's being funny in the back of the room, there's being funny, and then there's being funny for other, you have to be like double or so, and I was just like, fuck that. But
I kind of like entertaining, but I don't want to do the work of the stand-up comedian. In that I don't want to travel out to the comedy club, stay real late up.
Well, that's Eddie Gallagher. That's like cricket comedy. Those guys do that like all over the place.
I like podcasting, especially talking about the nerdy news, because you can set up a really long-running joke, which we did all the time on Triforce, and you can really extend out and have what I like to call onion layers to your joke, to where you can look at it from
it's like
angles.
an onion. I don't know.
All about onions on the Projangers and Wall Hangers
Really?
Network. Yeah, all about onions. Because I like being able to look at content from different angles. Because I like to think of life like this. If you can't look at a situation from the other person's perspective without getting angry, the problem is your ego. And I heard it on Rogan.
I believe like empathy you're talking in? Or a version of empathy?
Yeah, but there's not a lot of that around anymore. Empathy. Oh, Jesus, no. It's easier to hate. Click, hate. I got to type and hate. That's why I also try not to look at the comments. Because it's like when I write, I try to close off external stuff. I'm in my room. I have, usually music playing. When I wrote Chronicles of the Hunted, I just said it on the last podcast.
Instrumentals or stuff with lyrics?
Lyrics.
Really?
Lyrics, yeah.
Do you find that it affects what you write?
I'll tell you this, because I just said the story. The Thought Kremlin got in between on my last podcast with Jabbar Brown, he's got, oh man, I got to have him on again. He's really big. He's doing artwork for George Clinton on the Parliamental Funkadelic comics that are going out there.
Wow.
Yeah. He's, worked with Rick Rubin, and it's just like, dude, this guy kept name dropping out of nowhere. And he was asking about Frank's project because he's a fan of Frank. Everybody loves Punisher war journals, and that's why they go up to him, and Frank's just like, please, I get my mail like everybody else. He's the most humble guy, which is perfect to have him as a podcast partner. And when I had to seriously sit down and write the pages, I pestered Mark and him to no end. To no end. But when I got serious, I sat down and wrote it. I was like, look, I need something to help me. And then I remembered Method Man. I popped on Wu-Tang Clan, Protect Your Neck.
Oh, okay.
I listened to Biggie. I listened to, like J. Cole. I listened to Jay-Z. I listened to all these.
So the classics.
I listened to the good rap and even like T.I. I popped on, who did I also pop on? I'm forgetting her name. She died, I think, in a plane crash. Real soulful voice. Starts with the A. Aaliyah. There you go. I pop on some Aaliyah. I pop on different kind of music. And even too, I'll pop on like the Fallout 4 soundtrack just to hear, different timing.
Oh, okay.
I like listening to different music, but what really clicks for me is rap music, because when you listen to like Protect Your Neck, it's.
I'm an old man. I'm beyond the
That's
rap
what I
stuff.
like about it. I like looking into the lyrics and the words behind it, and that's what really kind of triggers it for me, because I look at that as inspiration. When you listen to Protect Your Neck, swinging through your hood like the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And then when Method comes in, it's the Method Man moving on your left.
Well, I mean, pound for pound, you're going to get more lyrics out of a rap than you are out of anything else.
It's an explosion in my mind because it's poetry. It's a form of poetry.
But it doesn't come in here and then come out through. Well, I'm writing, but like this, it doesn't. It's got to be affecting what you're writing in some way.
Well, everything affects you when you're writing. To where you kind of you pick and pull from the inspirations you want for your idea, and you make it your own. To where that's where I'm really starting to learn now through all these different comic book creators that I'm linking up with. One of them is a comic book editor, Michael Florio of Wild Oni. He just got his comic book funded on Kickstarter. Great guy. He offered to be my editor because I had this idea jingling around my head for about like 13 years. And he gave me the perfect title for it after I pitched it to him. And it's Behind Elemental World, The Experiment. It's an alternative reality to our own. It takes place after an offshoot of World War II. And I thought, that's perfect. Aliens invade.
Kind of Watchmen-ish, the way that it's sort of like, you've got this alternate reality, but
Watchmen,
but there's
Fallout.
like where it splits.
Yeah.
All right.
Aliens invade. They capture us all up quickly, very quickly. And they gas us to something that's toxic.
Like
to
it's
them.
going to happen.
But what happens is, well, some people die. Well, a few. Some people
You can't make an omelet.
seemingly inert. Very few other people gain the ability to control elements of fire, water, earth, wind. So you get that kind of, falling skies, Watchmen meets Avatar, The Last Airbender. Where are we going here? And then you mix in different stuff like, okay, well, if I'm looking at this, I wanted to have my main character be the same person from that alien invasion. But I wanted my main story to take place up here, because that's what I kind of did when I wrote Chronicles. I like to have a history there to play around.
And what's that one? Is that a comic book?
Chronicles of the Hunted is the title of my annual that I did with Frank. I start in the middle of stories sometimes.
That's great.
Some creatives do. Works great for podcasting with them. And that's where editing comes involved.
Well, see that if you're pre-record, you can just edit it and stuff like that. Now we go live, man. It's all it's all by the seat of our pants.
Don't rate it and do it live. Yeah, we went live for years, man, and I loved it. But up until it was like somewhere after COVID, it was like a couple of years after COVID, maybe like a year or two ago, there was like a gremlin or something got into my computer, old Christopher Bustos as well, and I couldn't go live. I couldn't even stream Netflix onto my computer, and this is a gaming PC. So I don't know what happened.
That's really weird.
We reset it and got it to the point where it functions, and it was just kind of off.
What was the graphics card? Was like a 3060 or something?
I got an RTX. I have an RTX 3080 Super from the old man. That's the benefit. It's the benefit of having your co-owner and podcast partner be in IT and have a even better rig than you.
I was going to say,
I get the
3080 is rocking.
Yeah, oh my God, it's great. I need a better processor. I'm rocking an i5 right now, so the Mac computer's a little bit out to date. But it still does what I need it to. I don't go live, but because of that gremlin, but also I liked recording because Lugnuts and Triforce, I was going live every single night repeatedly. The show must go on. Then I realized that with recording, I can have like a whole weekend of
You
shooting.
could load them in the chamber.
Yeah.
You could put a bunch in the chamber and just fire them out as you wish. You could do all your recording on one day. I think they did that with Mark with Delco Live because I was like, when is it going on? He's like, they recorded it. I'm like, oh, okay.
With
okay.
Tales, I try to keep the firm schedule like a week or two out, like with Buzz Hudson, who I'm having on, I think in a week or two, the 18th. I work with your schedule, and I'll pop it in my calendar so I remember. But a lot like, when we scheduled this, I was like, calendar right now. That was the first. Now I'm like one of those schedule people. Like, I don't know. I got to check my
I'll
schedule.
tell you what, if I don't write it down, it's gone.
Well, I didn't have many things
Because I think I'll
to
remember it. I think I'll remember it.
It's like go to work, eat, sleep, breathe, podcast.
Remember your friends' phone numbers, like all that shit.
That was it. Now it's just like, oh well, I got so many different people and connections, and so many people I want to have back on, because they're gonna, different guests. Because Josh Shockley, when I had him on, it was on Tales. That was like the floodgates.
Josh Shockley is.
He is the owner of PLB Comics. He was a comic creator that we had on Tales. And John the Swamp Dude, he has multiple volumes out there of that. Great comic. And the Halloween issue, he got a lot of other comic creators in there, like Brandon Spicer and his brother, that they got their firm footing in comics to where they're one of my best podcasts is the Christmas Cast with Brandon Spicer.
So how long have you done this?
With Projangers and Wall Hangers, we're going on our 6th year. This is the 6th year.
How many times a week?
I try to put out at least 2 podcasts a week. I try to put out Lugnuts podcast with my brother. Shortly after we started Triforce, when the Grand Tour announced that they were going to stop doing their show like they did with Top Gear, it was kind of sad because we were like, where are we going to hear about these European cars and all the world news on cars? And my brother's like, well, why don't we do a car show? We could do a car podcast. He loves cars. He loves F1.
And Clack don't do it anymore.
Yeah, he loves F1 and all that. And I have 2 degrees in the automotive field, automotive repair technologies and collision repair technologies, as well as over, a decade of experience in the business. So having that kind of knowledge, and with the broadcasting with both of us, that leads to Lugnuts. And Lugnuts being about a half-hour program talking about all the latest in the automotive news, almost said nerdy news, but automotive news from around the globe. We talk about Dacia, Sandero, Fiat, Mercedes,
all of them.
Very seldomly. The Stellantis group, but not Stellantis. We talk about, different technologies. Like everybody's always hyping up electric. And what a lot of people, like even France, are doing is
like hydrogen?
They're looking into hydrogen. They're changing over their buses.
Called it.
There's a new technology they've did with hydrogen fuel cells.
The exhaust is like water vapor, right?
Yeah, exactly. Literally just water emissions. Yeah. And there are conversion kits. There's a company.
For your car?
That not only converted a car, but it completed Le Mans.
A hydrogen vehicle completed Le Mans. That's the 24 hours, right?
Yeah. Had to bring its own fuel, too.
Yeah, well, I guess so.
And the 24-hour circuit completed it with hydrogen, and it was a converted car. Now you're telling me you can't do that for
this one
everybody
they didn't
else cheaper.
They didn't build it from the ground up. They converted an
older
pre-existing
car. Like Back to the Future.
Engine.
Convert your car to the hovercraft. It's just like that. And then France moving all their buses over to hydrogen.
Really?
All their public buses, they're moving over to hydrogen. A lot more people are, especially the Japanese 5, they're putting a lot of focus on hydrogen technology. And to where it's not, the infrastructure isn't there yet, but guess what? The infrastructure isn't there for electric either.
No.
Look at California, where they beg you, please don't charge your car. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about
Remember
that.
they used to have the rolling blackouts?
Yeah.
They didn't improve the network from there. Look at Austin when they got the snow. Infrastructure is horrible around in this country. So when you're looking at a future for automotive mobile, hybrids, if you want to go an electric route, that is where companies like Ford are like, we think we're going to do hybrids. I mean, hybrids seem a lot better. I don't know about all electric. And now you want,
Before-
like California, by 2035, no combustion engines being sold.
Really?
None. So that's why there's this push for EVs on the electric market right now, because you have California going out there saying, guess what, guys? We're getting rid of that. Completely ignoring that China has a bunch of coal factories. If we're looking at carbon, we're not that bad.
I mean, there's like
It's the rest of like China, India. They're still rolling coal.
They're all developing. So I mean, they're where we were. What, like?
China has, and I think it was like 2-3 years ago, they had an explosion on Steam because they were all connecting to the internet. The Chinese government was still monitoring what you could buy, but you were connecting to the internet and games, and it was being a lot more popular there. And that's to where modernization is coming around the world, slowly but surely, just like the trickle-down effect everywhere. But if we're looking at this country, especially for the future of automotive, being in the trenches, I think it's going to be very slow-moving. But if you're looking at electric, I think that hybrids are the way to go. But I think ultimately, if you're looking at a long-term answer over the fossil fuels, it's hydrogen, 100%. Because it doesn't matter if you buy that new hydrogen car. You can have that company saying, hey, don't worry. You love your TL? Yeah, I do. Well, I got a conversion kit. And you can go to
How would that even work? How does it? I mean, it just uses the existing tank and fills it. I mean, it's got to be pressurized. I mean,
the engine in and of itself. Anyway. And I'll bring you back to my basic engines class because it all goes back to whether you look at. We'll break it down to the two: diesel or gasoline, regular petroleum. When you look at diesel, it's a lot thicker. Yeah. That's why
it's lower. It's lower. When, like the gases in the middle. They used to throw it out back in the 1800s.
And that's why when you look at the old diesel text, they'll talk to the newbies and say, "Go look for the spark plugs on the engine," because there's no spark plugs. There's glow plugs, but that's to get the temperature up because it's combustion.
There's no spark plugs on a diesel engine.
No, just like it's compressing that diesel gas so much to where the molecules are going fine. Because all you need is a spark, fuel, and air. That's how you get the fire. Well, you need fire. You need intake, combustion, exhaust. Yeah, intake, exhaust. Intake.
I'm forgetting. It's been a long time since I installed my cat
and exhaust. So the 4-stroke motor. Now you have rotaries and all that. There's different principles to where you're still taking this same thing. You're going from piston, rotary, you're just going like this and with like a triangle essentially. There's a lot of different ways to where you could convert things to be a lot more efficient, and everybody can. Like, I mean, you look at different things, like Volkswagen got in trouble for the default devices.
What's that?
It was essentially when you test emissions, when you do run emissions.
I heard about this. Go on. Yeah, okay. Yeah. They kind of fudged the numbers.
It was only really being eco-friendly when you were at that emissions thing. And they're like, look, it's tested fine. Because the default device is like, all right, if it's in this specific location.
But isn't that sort of, I mean, not so much that, but when they advertise any sort of car, it's like this car gets like this in the city and this, and that it's in the absolute perfect
Don't
conditions.
trust that Maroni label. That is false.
What is that? What is it called?
Maroni. Yeah, the Maroni label. That window sticker.
Yeah.
Maroni label. I guess the guy who made it, his name was Maroni.
I was going to say, I've never heard that phrase before.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's the little things like that. You learn the ins and outs.
Macaroni.
You definitely learn the ins and outs of the auto industry just being around. There's a whole bunch of different kind of auto nerds, and being.
What's a weird auto fact that like a layman wouldn't know? Like something kind of crazy, something that you'd win a bet at a bar, let's say.
Win a bet at a bar? I don't know.
Maybe not that, but
Yeah, I mean, weird experiences I've had. I mean, working as a service advisor was ultimately better for comedy in general because we had some really wacky people come in. This one woman, God bless her heart, she was very old, white hair, and she said with a fact, and this is my favorite story, I would like a loaner car with a radio this time. And this was in like 2021.
When I'm sure there's a story coming.
Well, you know, radios have been in cars since.
That's where I was thinking. It's kind of like a heater. Heaters have been in cars forever.
You don't ask the owner, does your car have air conditioning?
Not now, but back in the
Back then you did. So this is the kind of person we're talking to. I have my job as a service advisor is now to explain to this woman who doesn't know anything about cars. She's probably brilliant in a whole other facet of life, but cars she doesn't get. Well, man.
They go. You get in them, they go. That's what they're like. It's like a light switch. You don't care about the electricity.
I knew I was wrong, but I just threw out a safe bet. I said, ma'am, every car since the 80s has had a radio in it. I know how to work a radio.
Okay.
She calls up her husband.
What? She's going to...
Puts him on speaker. Earl, I changed the name of the innocent. Tell him the loaner didn't have a radio. Yeah. Like, I'm going to turn around like, oh, my God, Earl said it.
Well, then
Guys, I'm so wrong. Earl, did you hear Earl? We got to check that loaner. You know, like utter ridiculousness. And then this one valet, God bless his heart, she's stomping out to the car. He's very nice. He opens the door. He's walking out with her. And I hear as the door's shutting, all right, ma'am, let me show you how to work that radio. He walked in after that conversation. He was an innocent. I can only imagine how she bit his head off.
What? How, I was going to say, the radio's been in every... I mean...
Yeah, man. You get a lot of real noodle scratching moments when you're at the in the industry I am, because there's all types of life that walk through. Especially, I went to the foreign cars because working for American cars, I had people just flat out not care about their safety. This one guy had an old Durango, a red one, and he brought it in for an oil change and a state inspection. My one kid going to, one of the schools, he's got his license. All right, man, I can do it. And he puts it in the air. He's like, dude, this is not safe. I was like, well, how unsafe? He said, the subframe is not connected to the frame. It's rusted out in 3 parts. I was like, okay, you can spin the part that's still attached to the subframe. You can spin it like a plate. And I walk out and I tell this guy, sir, your car is not safe to drive. You should get this towed out of here. And he essentially said, nah, I'm fine. He came back. Kept telling him up until the day I left there. He kept coming back
with the same vehicle.
Same car. I'm like, dude, how do these people get around?
Well,
especially in Delco, you've seen these cars. These are infamous for our county. These atrocious abominations that are still on the road. I saw a muffler in the center of the street in Brookhaven, and everybody drove around it like it was normal.
Well, I mean, it happens. It's kind of, that's like
You don't
roadkill.
take care of your car.
How does
the mechanic in me screaming? How
does a muffler just fall off a car? It's just
lack of maintenance. Oh my God, lack of love.
Take care of your cars, people.
Love your car. Love yourself. Two little lessons.
No, people don't do that. Like
2 things you got to do, but nobody does.
I forget who I was talking. Oh, you know what? I got a car guy here. Is there essentially any difference between premium and regular? I mean, I only put premium in my car, but am I being stupid doing that?
I'll tell you this. I got a TL, and with Acura, the old Acuras tuned their cars to run off a premium, to where usually near the gas cap, it'll tell you what's recommended.
Yeah, I have mine sport tuned, so they recommend
premium
with the sport tune. Yeah.
Now with my TL, I put in Ultra. I put in 93 over just premium, because if I put in Ultra, I don't get my check engine light on, because sometimes I'll drive like an old lady. I'm not in a rush to get to work. We'll take our time, and my check engine light would come on. And I'm like, and the one mechanic when I was at Acura, he was like, drive like an old lady, don't you? I was like, yeah. He goes, it's going to come on. You either got to gun it or put Ultra in it. So I just put Ultra in it and check engine lights.
Really?
Yeah. I guess that was my weird factoid.
To
answer your question.
Yeah, there you go.
I come back around.
We came back around.
Yeah.
So you'd have to hammer it in order to.
Yeah, because it's a performance car.
Huh.
Drive like an asshole or put in Ultra. I do both now on the Blue Group, but
automatic or stick?
Automatic. I'm so lazy. So lazy. I can drive.
But do you? I mean, did you have stick in the day and you miss it?
My dad, when I was still in high school, and my dad had an '89 Corolla that was a manual, and that was the car I learned stick on. because when I was a senior in high school, that's when my buddy was a valet at Westchester Acura. And he's like, hey, man, I could get you a job at the valet, because we were going to Delaware County Community College together. So we'd drive from Oxford all the way down to Delaware County and then drive over to Westchester Acura and then drive home. So I was driving over like 100 miles a day.
That's a crazy amount of.
college
I mean, that's. Go on.
Yeah, the radio, man. That's where a lot of the bleed through comes in, of just learning how to handle.
My uncle used to live. He lived on Lightning Hill over in Oxford, and it's just like, I mean, and it took. And I lived in Wallingford back then, and it took. And I worked at Longwood Gardens, so I would pass. So I'd pass by Longwood Gardens. I'm like, well, I'm at Longwood Gardens, so I'm practically there. No, I was not. I still.
You want to know the most masochistic drive I used to do every day?
Was.
So when I was still a mechanic, I was working at Conicelli. No, I was working at Kia over in Conshohocken.
Okay.
So,
Conshohocken?
Conshohocken. I was living in Parkside, so it's right up the Blue Route.
Oh, okay.
Now, I was living with my ex-fiance at the time. We broke up. Just realized one day, I don't love you. And, I'm like, you know what? I don't either.
It happens.
What do we do? And part of his friends, we're still friends to this day. She's a great person. She was, I just said last podcast, she was the person that gave me that boot in the ass out of high school.
There you go.
Either you go to college or you get a job. One or the other. None of this, I'm going to figure my life out. Pick. So I went to the automotive route eventually. And that's where everything kind of tied together when you look at life, tying everything in cumulatively.
Somebody saying hi?
Most likely. These guys are very active.
Not particularly tonight.
But
I think everybody's cold.
So we broke up, and I moved back to my parents' house in Lincoln University. Now, I kept my job at the Kia Conshohocken dealer. So I was driving from Lincoln to Conshohocken. And the only way you can do that is Route 1 to the Blue Route. So that was like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes on a good day, maybe 2 hours. I did it for like 6 months, dude. That was my second.
My brain's thinking too somehow. My brain's thinking maybe, but let's just stop and Route 1's pretty fucking stop and go.
And back then they didn't have and this was like it was before 2013. It was around like 07. No, it was earlier than that. It was probably like 04. Oh no, 06, 07. And yeah, there was not a lot of lights up there. Now there's a bunch of lights out there, and they're just populating all that.
Well, I remember when I used to, I had a lady friend up in Allentown back in like '89, and there was the Blue Route wasn't open yet. There was no Blue Route. So in order to get from here to the Northeast Extension, it was 252. That was it.
My brother loves to tell me, I remember when they opened the Blue Route. Every time I come home, bitching about that.
I remember when they installed the guardrails on Blue Route. They were all silver. Well, not silver, but they were aluminum or whatever, because they hadn't rusted. They were designed to rust on the first rainfall to make it look aesthetically pleasing to the eye. And also goes down to 2 lanes in Swarthmore. But the day before it opened, like parts of the Blue Route had been made years, like decades before.
Yeah, you can
in fact, there were 4 routes, and you can figure out the colors: red, blue, yellow, and they all bled down to Chester, because Chester was this community that was really growing and everything. They laid them out in I guess the 30s. But the day before the Blue Route opened, I think it was the weekend before, the Sunday. It was the Sunday. I was 91. I think it was like April or May of 91. They just opened it up for people to ride their fucking bikes. Like everyone just went there like it was a party. People were riding their bikes and they were walking up and down like miles of it, just like all having a good time. And the next day it opened up.
Yeah, I live in Parkside, currently infamously titled "Not the Hood."
My grandmother lived in Parkside.
Such a quaint little. It's like the Shire. It's an awesome little town.
It's like Mike Scandal lives over there. Yeah,
it's an awesome little town. Like it's barely changed since I grew up. My brother and I live in a house that's like 3 blocks away from our childhood home. And the crazy part is that my ex-girlfriend's dad lives there now.
In your old house?
Yeah.
Wow.
How's that for serendipity?
That's kind of weird. Well, I mean, mine's flat. They flattened mine, and made it a parking lot. I drive by it.
Oh, they ruined that house anyway. Our house was awesome when we owned it. They messed it up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was a blue house, and they turned it brown. Brown's such an ugly color.
Earth tone. I'll take blue over brown. I mean, obviously.
Yeah,
But
it's a great color.
What else you got going on?
Man, I'm going to be on the Corey Castle podcast next. It's upcoming Thursday, and it's a lot of Tales of the Hunted. It's a lot of writing my own project. I'm going to be doing the video for Frank's Kickstarter for Caribe the Hunted, because it all comes really back to Frank. I mean, meeting him at the Game and DVD Exchange and him being such an awesome person, and just seeing this little podcast, like, hey, if they could do my video, he's trying to keep it thrifty. He's trying to keep it cheap, so that way it can keep going and be successful. And the Kickstarter is really the big thing for that. So when I got Frank on board, because I did the side story for him, and to the point to where I finally got happy enough to stop rewriting it. And I sent it to him. I said, here, I'm done. And then I started writing my own project, because otherwise I'm going to keep tooling around with that until he
You'll
draws it.
Yeah, you'll never let it go.
And then I was doing the Matt and Cat show. It was Katerina Thermascara, my old podcast partner from Triforce, and we were doing this Discord chat, and it was talking about nerdy news. And then, hey, I got a great idea. We'll talk about the nerdy news with Frank. Frank has a great opinion and stuff. So, and then we had him on. And then Cat got busy, and then I was like, you know what? Why don't I hit up Frank? Our first podcast, The Tales, was with Frank, because he's just an awesome guy to talk to, and then he knows people. We met up with Josh Shockley, who turned me on to Jetta Anthony and Jim Cantanelli, Johnny.
You got so much shit going on.
I do. I have so many guests. I'm one of those guys. Like, I have a lot of people I want to talk to, because with Tales, I want people to be hunting you. I want them to find your content. I want them to be able to find this amazing stuff, because when I started just dipping my toes into this indie market and these indie comic creators, they're giving me more love than my own Facebook friends have for 10 years.
Really?
I have Josh Shockley, Brandon Spicer sharing out my show. Josh Shockley sending me guests like I'm one of the bigs, like I'm Rogan. I mean, it's nice having these indie guys, because they all want to be on. They want people to hunt their content. To the part where I was looking for guests, and I was like, you know what? I went to Google. I was like, connecting with comic creators. The first unpaid ad was a Facebook group said connecting with comic artists and writers, and I was like, well, that's perfect. I messaged the group leader, and I told him what I wanted to do. I said, hey, I have a podcast with Frank Percy. That's all that's needed. Everybody knows Frank, especially in comics. If you know Punisher, he was involved. He was an inker. At least that's in my mind, because I'm a fan of Frank's. And then just with all these tales, getting to meet all these people, getting these people is my main goal. So I told that pretty much to this guy, and he was like, you know what? I like it. Go right ahead. And I put out a post there. Within the first day, I got a guy. He said, you know what? I'd like to be on. I messaged him, and I told him how we do things over there with the Discord. And he says, sounds great. As soon as I'm done my second volume, I'll let you know, because I'll have something to promote. So, random guy on social media. I had another guy that my buddy Michael Florio of Wildoni, he wanted to be on a podcast he was doing. That he stopped, and he was like, you know what, go over to Purge Hangers and Wall Hangers, contact Matt.
Do you have trouble dragging him on Discord as opposed to Zoom? I know Zoom is
I got
the normal.
Mark McKenna on there.
Really?
I send you a link. You click the link.
So it's essentially just, because I've done stuff on Discord.
Oh yeah, you go in as a guest. That's what Jabbar did. You go in as a guest. It's right there. I mean, with Discord, I like it because there's a social media element to it.
Back during COVID, the second year of COVID, I was doing an open mic on and using Discord, and I was able to put an audience in Discord so that the people playing the open mic, I could open up and they could hear the real applause from the audience.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so they would finish their song, and I totally forget how I did it. I had it programmed to the fucking nines, and I would open it up, and the people would be, oh yeah, that was great. So you could actually get a feedback, which is something you never. I mean, you can get it in text, but you could the artists could really hear it. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's the best part of being at a live event like that. Like being at the Great Media Comic Con was great because I was a founding member, and then I had to step out because I lost my job in the automotive industry you'll love this because I was a service advisor and I didn't get good
You told them that
enough
there were radios in
surveys.
cars.
Yeah. I was like, there's 100% radio.
Earl was right, dude.
Yeah. And he was right. And I was wrong. And bye-bye, Matt, man. And that was a big hit to my ego.
Oh, yeah.
It was a real big hit to my ego. I got 2 degrees. I'm the car guy. I was the most qualified person at that service advisor desk.
And you're done.
And I'm done.
So what do
But
you do
know
next?
what? I knew why I was done. Because I was burnt out. The dealership machine it's a lot like that Black Mirror episode. It's almost like you got a social credit score because a lot of your pay is based off of those surveys. You get like a $500 a week salary, and then hey, you better get them surveys in there if you want those bonuses.
What are the surveys? I have a friend of mine who comes on.
You
and
go
sells
to
cars
you go
over
to
at-
the dealership, you get your
Autos.
oil changed or whatever work done, and then you get like a 25-question survey from Acura, and from the dealer. And that survey is now, with a lot of dealerships, is becoming a standard.
And the
of their
survey
pay.
is from who?
Customer.
The customer
So
is ringing
the
you out.
customer is taking the
So
survey.
it's like an Uber thing. It's like
Yeah.
you need your 5 stars.
Yeah, you need the 5 stars. Otherwise, they're not going to put up with it because guess what? Your service manager is getting a bonus for that as well. So everybody's pay is tied into you getting that perfect experience
Oh man.
in customer service.
I work among other things. I do the sound for the media theater, but I work the board, and I have like tonight we had 350 audience members, and I guarantee you, most of them liked it. Not everyone liked it, and it's not that it was bad, but everyone's different.
Exactly. But that's the problem with centering someone's pay around a survey in any facet. I hate
And
that.
also, you can't. I mean, what are they coming in with? Did their old lady yell at them that day? Are they getting divorced? Or are they going through shit? Or did they have a good day? Did they have a bad day? You're not. You can't. You can't.
I was at work. My coworker, he was checking out this guy, and he could tell because where Westchester Acura is, it's right by a golf course. This guy was hammered. He knew he was hammered because there was a double-sided glass in the old building.
Yeah.
Not the place they're at now. There's this, one-sided glass, and it was shiny on the outside, and it looked like a mirror. So a lot of people were like,
Oh, yeah.
this guy finished off a pounder and tossed it in the trash can and tried to go pick up his car. Well, my coworker's right next to the window. He's looking at him finish it off and trying to come in, and he's like, no. Like, no, dude, I'm not giving you your car. And his wife had to come pick him up. Try asking that guy for a good survey.
Dude, you're not going.
Maybe from that guy's wife, because that guy's wife bitched him out in front of everyone in that service,
What?
sitting area.
Oh, no,
my God.
that is
belittled him.
That's unacceptable.
He was hammered though. That was unacceptable. Drinking at the golf course all day, going to plan to pick up your car. That's just bad life decisions.
Dude.
But there's all types, man. There's all types, because for all the wild ones, what kept me in it so long were the people, the single moms, the people.
So you were selling the cars, you're saying?
I sold cars for a time. I sold the services for the mechanics. And that's what a service advisor is. You need an oil change. And then I tell you, hey, you know what? Have you gotten your fuel injection cleaning service done? Have you gotten, you know what? Every 12 months to 1 year, you should get your air filters changed out. It affects the gas mileage. Hey, you need to rotate your tires. When was the last time you got in alignment? You seen the roads that are out there
I'm thinking about my high capacity air intake. When the last time I put that in, I probably need a new one by now.
Most of the high quality ones, you just kind of like wet it out and dry it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing.
Like
she
a lot of
really,
the K in it.
It's a turbo, so she really breathes. It's one of the things because I know that they.
GTI was a turbo. I loved that car.
Well, I mean, you walked by my Sonic, which is basically a GTI knockoff. It's like a half-price GTI. It's a total knockoff, and I have no problem with that.
I always wanted that XC90, the Volvo, that was like a knockoff of the GTI, because it was like 9 horsepower more, but it was a Volvo, and they're like.
Well, the GTIs
They're
have
like
they have like 250 horsepower, some crazy
Now,
number.
I think they put a lot. I had like a 07 or 08 GTI. It was beautiful.
Well,
They hugged roads.
What is it that Ford doesn't even make anymore? Was it like the all-wheel drive stick shift Ford Focuses? Those
Yeah.
they had like 350 horsepower.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll kill you.
Oh, those were insane. Ken Block had the Focus. R.I.P.
Oh, that was a block car? No
well,
shit.
Ken Block had a couple cars, but he had, I know he had the Focus. He had a, dude, his Hoonigan cars are so crazy. Those videos are awesome, especially being a car fan. Just having all that crazy content before COVID. My brother and I were actually planning.
He would show up on Top Gear once in a while.
Yeah, and we wanted to do one of those crazy journey videos because we got a GoPro, and one of the things I did for Lug Nuts, because I wanted to make that an automotive show, is we got James Legion from Cultus Black. We got James Legion and Wade Harris to do intro songs for Projangers and Wall Hangers. It was an 8-bit theme, and we just sent him some examples of these 8-bit themes that we used in previous ones because we went to, just an internet site that had good mixes and stuff. And we'd sit there and pick which one we liked. And when I went to Lug Nuts, I was like, look, man, I want the Allman Brothers Top Gear song.
That's Jessica, I believe. Yeah.
Iconically wise. I want it to sound like that, be as memorable as that.
Yeah.
I want it to hit as hard as 1,000 horsepower Godsmack, and he did it. Starts off, so it sounds like an old engine.
Oh yeah, it's like Hot for Teacher, like the engine of Hot for Teacher. Yeah.
And then he has like an air gun going off, a high note in there that really sounds like that hairband holding the high note. He does it expert. I love this song. 3 years and counting playing this song. I never get tired of it.
No, that's pretty solid.
In the earlier Lug Nuts episodes, I would have an intro, and I would have that as the music bed, and then I would do funny moments. And then my brother's like, Jesus Christ, you're beating him over the head with the Lug Nuts song. So now we'll just do an almost...
Just sprinkle it in.
Yeah, an almost Top Gear style to where there's nothing left to do but to crank over the engines, gearheads, and I'll hit the song, and my brother will go, tonight, Ford is wary on EVs, and he'll do that kind of lead into the stories we go. And then with DaVinci Resolve, I will cut it, add an awesome transition.
Is DaVinci still free?
Yeah, it's great.
Because it's basically...
You can subscribe, but the core program and a lot of the stuff that I use on Lug Nuts and Triforce and all my editing is that. To the point where most of... this will probably bog your mind. Most of Tales of the Hunted, I'm sitting in the studio room, and right next to that is the living room. And it's an old 1908 house. It's wide open, real hardwood. In the dining room next to me during almost all of those podcasts, my brother is sitting there playing video games and listening to music, and you can't hear it. In the most recent one, you can't hear it at all.
Plaster walls?
No, it's like if he was sitting over there. That's the power of the Rodecaster Pro. The noise canceling of that, the noise canceling that is in the Discord help out, but with DaVinci, then it has an automatic noise cancel.
Gate. It's got a gate on it too, I imagine. And compression, probably.
Yeah, it has all those, and I'm just starting to go into there, but it's like Fairlight Studios is its own little sound stuff that has a color correction, and this is all free. Sound and coloring, you can do all that. You can make, it's what filmmakers actually, some indie filmmakers, I'm not going to say all of them, but some filmmakers use. And it's a really easy program. I watched the tutorials. For what I still have to watch the Fairlight tutorial from them, but I watched the easy YouTube one to figure out
a little dry. Some are easier to watch than others. Because
I found that when I was talking, and if I had a pause like I like to, I don't like to do the like George W. Bush learned, pause.
When I would take these and I would turn them in, because we for about a year or so we would do like a literal podcast, like they run Spotify, and I would go through and I would edit them down, and I would, if it was possible, I would get rid of lots of ums and ahs, and there's lots of ums and ahs. There's woof.
It's brutal. Looking back, I mean, the beginning of podcasting, and then Chris did a lot of the editing. And at a certain point, he has kids.
They're working. The people that do that work for Jesus.
Yeah, he has kids. So I'm like, dude. I mean, what if I took on the editing?
Clip.
And dude, for a good better part of 5 years with Bird Jaggers and Wall Hangers, I've been editing all the content. Chris pops up some stuff. Like videos that he does with his son. He'll do some game streams occasionally where him and Connor play like Cuphead or something like that. That's cool.
Dude,
like, when it comes to the editing on the shows, that's all me. And it's that's the part that's crazy about this, to hearing somebody say like, hey man, I really liked your podcast. One of the comments we got on the Christmas cast with Brandon Spicer was, great guest. I like how Brandon talked about his brother and how he was self-taught. Awesome show. Made my day.
Yeah.
I do it for me, yes, but I play to that one person. Ultimately, I don't care if that show I put out today got 1 view. If I touched one person.
That's my joke. I'm like,
done.
this'll. I don't know if my viewer will like this. That's the joke. I sometimes tell.
Yeah. Well, I taught my brother because Chris would also tell me when people that he knew were watching Lug Nuts. And some of his people are like CEOs or managers. He'd be like, hey, man, this one manager at this company I'm working at, they like Lug Nuts. And my brother's like, oh, cool. We have a viewer. He is pragmatic.
Yeah, I mean, somebody somewhere is watching. It's like I got my streaming numbers back from I put on an album last year of stuff that I recorded back in like '91, like from between like '90 and '91, and it was like all these back in the time it was useless because I'd get up. I got this really nice keyboard. They made it in Malvern actually, and in Sonic, and by but they got bought out by. Creative. They got bought up by Creative back in the early aughts.
I used to have an Ibanez bass guitar.
I have an Ibanez bass guitar downstairs right now, an SD. You probably had an SD.
Yeah, it was a nice black Ibanez because that was a little
short
punk
scale
rocker.
or full scale.
I love it full scale.
I love short scale because I just don't. I don't need all that space.
It was a nice
5 or
bass.
4. 5 or
4.
4.
4. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm that way too. I don't need that.
I
little B.
loved MXPX. That was one of my favorite punk bands, and the lead singer was the bass guitarist. And one of their live albums was
tough to be the lead singer and bass guitar. I mean,
Yeah.
Geddy Lee does it, but
I couldn't do it. No, God bless Getty, but no, they broke the mold on him. There's nobody else,
no.
nobody else like Getty. But that's the thing of being a music fan. I think that also influences my podcasting and what I write, being that it touches you in a way that other media does. Like a good podcast can really change your mood. It could changing a person's mood is really hard. I know that from the service industry. And ultimately, that's what I want to do when you watch my program. I want you to forget.
Well, I would imagine they're
what
walking
went
into.
wrong.
I mean, if they're coming, people are going into a dealership to buy a car. So you've got them in the door, and people have tuned into a podcast because they want to be entertained. So you've got them there.
Yeah.
Just what do you do with them once you've got them there?
The onions. The joke.
It's all layers.
It's all about the jokes, man. You got to go for the joke. That's the best part. Because me and my brother are big stand-up comedy fans. And one thing that we do before we do Lug Nuts is we watch a stand-up comedy special. We'll watch Dave Chappelle. We'll watch Ari Shaffir. We'll watch, Mark Norman. We'll watch.
There's a new guy. There's this new kid, Jeff
Ali Wong.
Jeff Acreedy. What's his name? His.
Every week we watch Kill Tony.
I don't know that.
On YouTube. It's Tony Hinchcliffe, one of the merry band that's down there in Austin with Rogan. And Tony Hinchcliffe and Brian Redband, they have a night at the Comedy Mothership down there, Rogan's Comedy Club, to where they've been doing it for 10 years. And they did it at the Comedy Stores where they start. But they give an amateur or just someone 60 minutes of
60?
60 seconds.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, you
I'm about to say, God damn,
That's
a long show.
that's a tight 5. It's tough to come up with a tight 5,
but-
people, if you didn't realize.
60 uninterrupted seconds of stand-up comedy to where he's made people's stand-up comedy careers from this. Now, you could get anything because it's a bucket pull. He picks a name out of a bucket.
Oh, it's like a story slam.
Yeah. And that I love Kill Tony because he's made this one guy, he's an up and coming kid he came out of nowhere out of the end of last year. His name is Cam. I'm brain farting on his name. That goddamn thought gremlin back again. Cam Johnson? No.
You'll
that's
remember
that's
it
the
in
ball player.
about 5 minutes when the show's done.
Oh, I know. It was Cam Haynes. I don't know. No, that's the other guy. But there's up and coming comedians on there. But the best part is the people that bomb, whether you do good or bad, there's an interview afterwards. And sometimes the interview is even better than that minute. And he'll get regulars that come in. But oftentimes on those shows, he'll have like another guest, another stand-up comedian guest. So they'll be judging the person and helping them after that minute. So they'll interview him like, hey, you know, that minute was good, but maybe if you just
Almost
cut
sounds like a
out.
reality show, like a competition sort of
great.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Except no actual, you know, like you're leaving the island sort of thing.
And it's hilarious because it's just stand-up comedy. It's a bunch of comedy. And there's people that you'll hear like, oh, I've been doing this for 5 years. And you're like,
Oh, we had a bunch of them out at the. We've had 2 packs of them out at the theater in the past couple months, and they both did pretty good. Some of them were better than others,
yeah.
and some of them are tough. It's not an easy thing, dude.
I respect stand-up comedy so much because I'm a fan, but I would ultimately never do it because I'm afraid that I would get bitten by that bug. And just like podcasting, I wouldn't stop until I got it.
Well, the guys who do it, well, I mean, it's just like the acting thing. Like when they go out there, like 100,000 people go out a year, and like 2 people make it. I mean, you have to, and you can't. And what they always say is, you can't have backup. You can't have a place that, like, you know what? I can go home. Like when I forget how old I was. I dropped out of college and I became a mailman. I was a letter carrier for a decade or so, and I was like, you know what? And I was playing these songs and writing and doing all this stuff and like. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll go do something. But this, I know I have this, and it was safe, and it existed, and it was there. You need to go out, and if you will, it's like Grohl toes the story. You just have to like sleep on couches, and it's just or live out of your car and shit like that.
You
I
have
was just
to be uncomfortable.
And you just have to want it so bad, and I just didn't want it that bad.
Well, that's the thing.
I like living in a house.
That's the reason why I resigned
My own
from
house.
the Great Media Comic Con as a partner because I didn't have that hunger. I had hunger.
I'll tell you, Mark's hungry.
He is. He is hungry, and I love him.
Hungry for crickets.
Just circling back around, Mark. See that?
What do you got going on next?
Next is the Corey Castle podcast, as well as the podcast I'm doing with Mark at the Great Media Comic Con. I'm going to be there.
You're gonna
with Frank.
You're gonna be. Wait, where are you? I wonder if they're gonna put us like category because I'm broadcasting the whole day.
I pal around. I pal around with Frank. I pal around with Frank wherever he goes. After the Ocean City Comic Con, and I met Greg LaRoche and Mark McKenna. I'm set, bud.
Fuck you.
I'm palling around with him.
Fuck
this
you.
guy's been doing comics since I was in diapers, and he's the coolest guy ever. You know what I mean? I was freaking out. I was
Brush
like, dude,
with
I had an
greatness.
I had an awesome day. Man, I just did an awesome podcast with Frank Percy.
Brush with greatness.
Where are you going tomorrow? I'm going to get yelled at by an old lady who says there's no radio in a car.
But that ain't right now. When I worked at Longwood,
Humble.
we had a lot of people don't realize a lot of big acts come through Longwood, like
Oh, yeah.
like Tony Bennett and Chris Isaac and stuff like that. But I was a big Susan. I don't know if you've ever heard the name. There's an artist called Suzanne Vega. She did Luca back in the '80s.
Vaguely familiar.
But I'm like her biggest, like, hugest fanboy. And when she came, I'm a sound guy, but all the sound guys were fighting over who's going to do sound, and there was nobody doing lights. I'm like, fuck it, I'll do lights. So I ran lights for her for the concert, and it was kind of like that. It's like, you got to be professional because I'm at work, but I'm running lights for like
I was able to.
my favorite artist of all time.
I kept it so cool.
I did too.
But that's because I didn't breathe. Frank knows. He'll
I
tell me on the
didn't
podcast,
breathe.
like, breathe, Matt, breathe.
You
And
gotta
I didn't
breathe.
breathe because they were talking like I was on a fly on the wall at the Marvel water cooler. I'm like, oh, so and so and so. I'm like, oh yeah, I knew that. And like, oh man, who'd you work on? And I'm amazed. And then I'm a big fan, Mark. He's like, who, me? And Mark's like, yeah, you. And I'm just like, these guys are so goddamn humble. It's awesome being around these people, but having that moment, they're like, blah, you have that nerd vomit, and you're like, okay, I'm good now.
I remember it.
Oh, I'm good. Because I just had fun with him on the show because he was like, I just went out and saw Aquaman. And he was like,
Oh, that's right. Aquaman was out.
Aquaman's got a baby and that whole dumpster fire. I'll wait till it hits the streamers. Like, look, I enjoyed Blue Beetle once it hit the hobo. I call HBO Max.
I got a special relationship with Blue Beetle. They re-released it in like 1985, and it was like Blue Beetle. If I recall correctly, he's kind of like Batman, except sort of a dick Batman.
Yeah.
But the new one isn't that at all.
No.
But right, he's a kid.
It's Jaime Reyes who was the second beat. He was the one that was able to understand the Scarab, and it elevated that character to a modern standpoint. Because I do like the character Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle. You getting that kind of a Peter Parker kid in that superhero role. And that movie, I thought it was fun. There's a lot of, there's a lot of garbage that comes out, but with those recent movies, I don't think they really got their just due because of the old regime that was in charge of DC. I think that if James Gunn controlled what he could have put out, instead of having all that money they spent millions and millions of dollars on that. They dropped Batgirl and they spent what? It was something ridiculous.
Dude, it's done. It's done. It's done with Frasier, and you got to figure with Frasier winning Best Actor because of The Whale, and all of the love that he's getting, you got to figure that they're like, even if it's a piece of hot garbage, I mean,
they let it out. All these other movies like The Flash, I wanted to like, but
haven't seen it yet because although I don't know why, but I mean, but.
I can't say it was bad.
Keaton's got to be great in it.
He is.
Like if Keaton, it's one of those things when you go see something with Jack Nicholson in it or Christopher Walken or something. It's like when they're on screen, when they're doing their thing, fine. The rest of it can be like a dumpster fire.
There were too many good moments that I loved in watching The Flash that I can't say it was a horrible movie, but it wasn't good.
It doesn't. I tell you what, it doesn't look horrible.
It's not. But here's the thing: they
say the effects in it are terrible, but they wanted to purposely make it terrible, right, or something like that.
I mean, there was mainly some effects in there, like the end, the big scene in the end, because they kind of made this their Crisis on Infinite Earths kind of, hey, we're gonna pull everything.
Yeah,
together.
Zod comes back. I'm familiar with a little bit. Still haven't seen it.
And then the Easter eggs they pull in there to where even like George Reeves and all these classic scenes they add in there to where okay, it may come off as hokey, but I enjoyed that because it was tying back to
Well, they definitely took a page from like Spider-Man No Way Home, which was like that was.
Yeah, they pretty much ripped that off.
Yeah, a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that was spectacular.
It's not like
not to say the spectacular Spider-Man. It was more like amazing.
To correct it, it's like how I was saying. It's like
comic
with
book
writing,
people.
You're kind of taking inspirations from everything. Well, it's a lot like putting your clothes in the dryer. If you don't leave it in the dryer long enough to rub your personal inspiration off on it, it's gonna seem like, hey, this seems like No Way Home, but you just changed your clothes.
They'll bet.
So, but
everything is everything else.
That's why I didn't go out to the theater. Because it's not original.
Dude, I haven't seen a movie in a theater, I don't think. I mean, and nothing against it, but I'm a sound guy, and speakers are always blown.
And it's nothing to say about Oppenheimer or anything, but like you're saying, like Granite Run, I was going there.
Oh, yeah.
Me and my brother had a podcast we were doing called Spoiler Alert. This is back in the all audio days of the podcasting. And it was Spoiler Alert. We'd go to Granite Run. We'd watch a movie. Like we went and saw like Shazam, the first one.
Not
came
bad.
Out as an early
Cute.
screening. We went
Kinda
there. And then from Granite Run to our house was like a quick drive. And we'd do a quick drive talking about the movie because it's capturing that honest conversation.
Keaton's in Batgirl, too?
He was supposed to be in Batgirl.
Get the fuck out.
That's why fans wanted Batgirl, but they were like, this is a dumpster fire.
How bad? See,
he was essentially going to be her mentor, but it was just look. I trust
if
them pulling the plug.
if you're going to sit there and tell me that this is the worst thing I've ever seen, then you're just going to make me want to see it more. Because it was, I'm thinking 2011. Wow, 2011.
If I'm setting your expectations in the basement, then I think you'll really enjoy it.
Well, I love something. I love something that's so, it's kind of like MST3K. It's something that's so phenomenal. That's amazing. If it's something that's so terrible, then I want that too. Because everyone's shit all over John Carter. It was John Carter Mars. Remember John Carter? It came in 2011.
Oh yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
This is the worst. This is the worst movie ever. This is the worst. It's terrible. This is terrible. Oh my God, it's so terrible. And I go in. I go, all right, I'm looking for terrible. You know what? It wasn't terrible. Also, you took two unbelievably beautiful people and made them naked and put them on screen for the whole movie. It's like, you got something for everyone. I'm like, this is not a terrible movie.
I do enjoy terrible.
It's not Shakespeare.
Some terrible movies. My favorite one that a lot of people hate is Rubber.
Oh, thank you, Facebook, for finally putting the chat up. Look at it. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, awesome. The Gremlins at
I was like, wow, it's really, like you said, I was like,
Quiet
it's
show today.
really quiet today. My one viewer is typing fast enough, motherfuckers.
Hey, that's where the radio comes involved. No dead air. No dead air. Everything, all live. I can do live. I can do recorded. Let's do it all. But yeah, man, it's a journey in podcasting. But the rubber is really,
Oh my God, the tire.
love it. Oh my God, I
It's
love
so
it.
terrible.
It's horrible.
It's like Teeth. I mean,
Yeah.
like, Teeth is, that one's a horrible one too.
There's movies that are so bad,
But I love
good.
it.
I was
Well,
almost late to work one
look
day.
at Dave
Me and
Wascatch.
my
Look at
buddy were
Suburban
just sitting there
Sasquatch.
watching it. Yeah, Suburban Sasquatch. It's just sometimes there's a bad movie, but you're like, yeah, but it's good.
I mean, to Dave's credit, he purposely makes it like that.
I like that though.
Yeah, I like playing it,
There
like
is
you know,
a
kind of
niche for
winking to
that.
the camera a little bit. You
You know,
know.
there's a fan like me out there, like, I love it. Like I cannot.
What's your
stop
favorite
talking
movie?
about
What's your favorite horror movie of all time, or one of the top 10? It's tough to pick a favorite. Am I guessing one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, or not so much?
The first Saw.
Really?
The first Saw, because essentially when I began the thought process of trying to write the side story for Frank, I originally wanted to do it in one room. So the first page of my story is in one room, and it came from Saw because I loved how essentially it was just one room. It all happened in there. You had your backstory, but it was all about the two people in that room. The horror, the tension. It didn't need to be a lot. But then at the end, when Jigsaw gets up, you're like, oh. I love those moments in films when you get to the end. And Jetta Anthony's good for that, especially with Creatures of Necessity. You get to the end where you think it's this this is just a bad kidnapping gone wrong, and you're like, oh, that was good. I love that.
Oh, is it like a twist thing?
Yeah, like the twist hit you when you're not seeing it.
Like that one good Shyamalan one?
Yeah, come
I
on.
mean, that's, the M stands for Minoj, by the way. My friend went to school with him.
That horrible Last Airbender. Oh my God.
No, you didn't sit through it, did you?
I did.
Oh,
I watched
that's your fault.
I can't wait for the TV. Jesus, you guys are really active. How are you?
Dude, what the fuck?
Hop
Isn't
on
that
over
crazy?
to Courage Hangers and
'Cause they're-
Wall
'cause-
Hangers. You guys get a lot of comments. I can barely get comments out.
Well, I don't understand. I
like
don't understand, and it's lagging, like, because it's going to do that again. Because that's why I was like, and they're probably like, why aren't they interacting with us?
I gotta tell you, man, and that's another benefit to going. I loved going live because when you get the comments and you're interacting, it makes this show a whole lot more fun. Especially Mark. He's usually great to. He's usually great for an awesome comment, like how he's all proud of us. He's always so proud.
He's so bad. Anyway, that's it. We went over.
We went everywhere.
Yeah, we went over. We didn't do our sodas, but that's okay. We'll do it another time.
We'll do it. I'll have to come back on.
Yeah, come back on. We'll do sodas because
Great Media Comic Con's coming close. You're gonna be there. You can
I'll
be
be
at a
there all
booth.
day
We
at the
can do
corner. Yeah.
Strange sodas at the con.
that sounds like a great
I'm
idea.
already planning on going live a bunch at the con.
Nice.
When I'm not. Frank likes to wander,
Well, you got to.
so you may.
And they're coming to the media theater. In fact, Mark, we got to talk with the Delco Lunch Bunch. You got to come sit with us, and we'll talk about because they're coming over doing Back to the Future over at the theater.
Yeah.
They're going to park the DeLorean out front. They're going to bring the people on. It's going to be fun times.
And at the end of last year, I told him that's the best idea ever. So
You're-
at the end of last year, he's like, "What if we could do this with media theater?" I was like, "That's an amazing."
If
idea.
only there was a contact. Haha, you're welcome. Let's hope it works. We just need a projector and a screen now because weird thing. We'll talk.
So essentially, I got here because of Mark.
Nice.
Thanks, buddy.
Nice.
Love you.
All right. Later, bro.
Later, man.
Thanks for coming on. Boop.
Wanna know how it feels. You don't know how it feels. You don't wanna know how it feels. I would never wish that on you. No, no, no. How it feels, yeah. You don't know how it feels. Now I said thank you everybody, good night. Thank you everybody, good night. Delco quarantine open mic. Delco quarantine open mic. Thank you everybody, good night. Turn until Delco late night. Right, Carl and all these other dudes, I don't know, they be talking crazy shit. Last time it was about a snowblower. Carl, crashed his bike. Yeah, his knee was torn up. I never seen, psych, I seen worse. He's alright. But check out Carl. Delco late night quarantine, open mic, alright. Thank you. I could play that all night.